we've given a couple of lenient minutes here to let everyone kind of trickle in. I'm sure they'll continue to come, but we're going to get started here. So thanks everybody for joining us for the new features live webinar. This is for the 9.3 release. It did go live earlier today to all of the environments. So you guys should be able to go and play with all these features after sitting through the webinar here if you've got a Shelterly account. Quick reminder that next month we're going to be changing the cadence. We're actually going to be starting a new webinar series, and this is the virtual quick start exercise hosted on April 13th. Angie will be taking the lead on that one. So if you register, you'll actually receive some pre-work that is going to allow you to go play around in Shelterly, learn how to do some things. There'll be videos and instructions to go with the training, and that'll culminate on the 13th in a Q&A and live demonstration session kind of going over here's how to do these things. So if you do get stuck or you have questions while doing that pre-work, it's a great opportunity to not only learn Shelterly, but then also have a little bit of time with one of our Shelterly experts on our team. So without any more delay, I'm going to hop right on over. And this was a big release for us. It was a little bit later than typical on our normal calendar. That had partially to do with a bunch of new features going in. I think we ended up with 60 new tickets, which is how we keep track of like features and bugs and all this stuff that we do on our side getting merged into this release, as well as a lot of you were in attendance at the summit last week. So we didn't really feel comfortable pushing out new content and new stuff while everyone was kind of on the road traveling for that. One of the big emphasis for this release was actually an overhaul of the vet module. So most people probably aren't super familiar with the vet module, but you probably have heard us talk about it in the context of CVET. CVET has been the main sponsor and collaborator with us on the development of these features. This page has quite a few new changes, primarily kind of calling out some of the urgency around some of the vet care, as well as if there's any special caution that should be required, making it a little easier just to identify which cases we should be tackling first. Additionally, this was kind of up here was a much harder tab system similar to this, but now it's a drop down because as people add more and more shelters, it was kind of hard to pick them apart. So if I select a shelter, it's then just showing you the animals that are in that specific location. The one caveat being that we also do have one called field animals, and this is going to show you all of your vet requests for animals that are actually out on active service requests still out in the field. There are the multiple tabs across here to show you the different vet things that need to be performed. Vet requests are kind of this animal requires an exam versus if I go back to all animals, you can see treatments are more like, hey, I need to actually give this specific antibiotic. Diagnostics or tests that you need to do, and procedures are operations that need to be performed on an animal. So this whole landing page has gone through some updates. I'm going to click into one of these animals. And so here, this is an example of what our patient medical record looks like. You'll notice this has been changed quite a bit in structure as well. The number one thing is we used to have a bunch of empty sections that didn't have any information in them. Now we hide those sections until there is information. Here we can kind of get a heads up. Here's the owner of this animal. Here's the medical note. Here's that vet request. Now we can actually perform an exam. I'm going to do one real quick. Implied in also this new field here, this used to be called performer. And I'm going to show you later in the demo how this is controlled. Right now, I actually don't have any people set up, so I'm actually going to show you right now. And so to get people into this doctor field, you actually kind of have to be an admin within your organization. And so we'll go into manage organization, and it's actually underneath manage users. So they still need to have a user account. But I'll come in here, and I'm going to make Angie right here. She is going to have, this is still the same thing that allows you to give out vet permissions. So we still want to allow vet permissions. And once you turn that on, you actually get to select a vet role. And so you can select one of these three, and it'll control where their name shows up inside of the UI within the vet module. So for anybody that's just doing data entry, that's a lot of how I help teams out. I'm not a vet tech, I'm not a veterinarian, but I do want to help them do vet entry. I can give them no specific vet role, which would mean my account won't ever show up as a veterinarian or as a vet tech within performing any of the procedures, operations, or administering any of the treatments. I'm going to right now make Angelina Ballerina here, a veterinarian. So we'll save that. And so if I pop back out, I'm going to go back into our incident. We'll hop back into our animal here. And so now I'm going to go, I'm looking at that same vet request as before, but now I'm going to start a veterinary exam. And now I have a doctor here. And so this is only going to show people that have been selected as veterinarians as their user profile. But now I can select them. I have to confirm their age. We'll put in 23 kilograms. That's quite the large cat. We'll go 10. Temperature, pulse, so on and so forth. And then here's the next thing that you'll notice has gone through a pretty decent change if you've ever used the vet module. This used to be one long stack of columns, made it a little bit harder to read. So we've made them 2 stacks of columns here. But the thing I really want to show is in this case, we're going to say that they have an abnormal result on their mucous membrane texture. So we're going to say it's ropey saliva and they have some discharge coming out of their ears. I'm going to leave the rest of them as normal, no significant finding. And we can put in, this is a medical plan that is going to treat the cat. I'm going to say save and finish here. You can also go through and make your treatments and your procedures and all your things downstream of that. That works basically the same, but I want to focus instead on the fact that here, now that I've completed an exam, I don't have any vet requests open anymore. So now I just have an exam section. And this was the vet request that triggered this exam. And what's nice here now is that we're actually pulling any of the abnormal results up to the top. And so in this case, we have those 2 abnormal results. Those are getting called out. We're keeping all of the old results as well. So you open this and you can see all of the previous results, but this is making it a lot easier for vets to quickly see what was the problem, what was the solution, so on and so forth. And the follow-on to that is that you can also now do a recheck exam. And as part of that, it'll make you say, what is the problem? So we're going to say that this cat still has some diarrhea. Next steps. But what's really nice is those abnormal results are pulled to the top and exposed in the recheck exam as well. So you know those are primarily the things that you're concerned with. If they haven't changed, you can leave them. You can always kind of modify other results. But just something to be aware of, this module kind of had 2 things I talked about so far, which was this new vet role field, as well as this overhaul of how recheck exams work. I'm going to back out of this. Coupled with this is, I am going to make one treatment plan so we can see. So I'm going to add a treatment. Inside treatments, you used to have to select a category, but now you don't. You can just type your treatment. If you're not sure on how to spell the thing, but you know what category, all category does is filter this list down for you. So we're going to give her some antibiotics. We're going to give her 1 once a day, every day for 7 days. Sounds pretty reasonable. And so now we've got our treatment request. And the only reason I'm doing this is just kind of flesh out this medical record a little bit more. So as I go back into the medical record, we can now see we have 1 open vet request. Here's our exam. All this information is being kept. Here's our treatment plan. So we've got a whole bunch of data here is the moral of what I'm trying to show you. And what we've added as well is the ability to download the entire electronic medical record as a PDF. So now at the very top, if you're on the patient medical record, you can download that electronic medical record. Takes a couple seconds. And what you end up with is a form that looks like this. So it has the animal information at the top, their current location, the owner, microchip, all their details. And then down here, there's that open vet request that I just created. Here's the previous one, as well as all of the results from the exam. And then as I scroll down, here's all the treatments that are outstanding. And so this is something you could print out or email or text or whatever you might need to either give to another vet that's going to take over care or to give to the owner as part of their discharge paperwork. Awesome. So we've gone through vet role. There's a variety of other vet changes, but those are kind of the high-level ones that I wanted to cover on the webinar this evening. So I'm going to hop back into the animal themselves. And so if I click into the animal, we've got a lot of information here, and we actually ended up making another PDF that allows you to kind of download all this information in one go. And so now we've already had the download animal care schedule, which creates your kennel card. but now you can actually download an animal summary as well. And so I will pop one of those open here real quick. And this one has similar information to the electronic medical record. You've got all your animal information up top, all your owner information, but it also includes all of your liability releases as well. This used to only be accessible from the owner page, which made it a little hard because it would print all of the animals and all of the liability pages. And now we've split that off and allow you to print out your vet liability release, your general liability release, and then your release of animals when they're taking the animals back. And so that's all available in this new animal summary page, accessible from the animal page. While we're in here, we have a couple new statuses that we want to talk about. So when I talk about status, this animal is currently sheltered. Animals, when they go into hotlines, start in a reported status. You can also have shelter in place. You can have reunited, so on and so forth. In the last 2 months, we've introduced 2 new ones. And so I'm going to go to change animal status so we can take a look. So one of the ones that have already existed was reunited and deceased. This new one here, transport requested. This one actually existed about 2 months ago, but we decided to rename it because it was a little bit confusing because it used to be called return requested. And so transport requested gives us a little bit more latitude because it's not always returning to owner property. This might be actually transporting to another facility or another region, and this allows us to keep track of that. So if you go through the transport requested workflow, it'll make you select a location you want to send that animal, and then that will actually show up on your dispatch map as a service request that can be deployed to a team. So you can imagine your map kind of changing from your incident itself to kind of like, now we need to start disseminating these animals out. The new one that we have is actually care transferred. And so reunited and deceased are what we call animal endpoints, meaning once we put them into either reunited or deceased, they don't really show up on our maps anywhere anymore because we're kind of saying they're out of our care. Similar to that is care transferred. And this is the case where, you know, you haven't just sent them to a vet for 2 days of treatment. This is like, we know this is an animal that needs to be taken out of the area and is going to be fostered at a separate system, and we're no longer legally responsible for them. Care transferred fills that gap and allows you to mark those animals so that they no longer show up as needing your current attention. You don't lose the animals. They'll always be accessible. You'll be able to look at those animals later, but it acts as a way to kind of get them off of your primary dashboard and not completely remove them from the system. So care transferred is a great option for exactly that of, hey, somebody's going to take ownership of this animal and we need to take them off of our books functionally. Awesome. Going down my list of things. So related to that, I want to hop into some of the new reports that we added. So we actually modified one report and added a new report this release. So the one that we modified was the follow-up. There we go, service request follow-up. This one used to just have a number of service requests. This is not a great example, unfortunately, but the columns will still be pretty explanatory. So it used to just say how many new service requests were there, how many shelter-in-place service requests, and how many UTL, or unable to locate service requests. But that wasn't giving us quite enough information to make decisions about how many resources we needed, because ultimately this report is about us planning our resources going forward on large disasters. And so we also added a column that tells you not only how many service requests there are, but how many total animals there are of each type, meaning you're going to have a much better understanding of typically new animals are going to be evacuations, shelter in place. You're going to need to bring a lot more supplies, and UTL are a lot lighter, but may involve needing traps or cameras or something like that. And so you can kind of think of those as the 3 types of missions, and having a more realistic count of the number of animals is going to give you better insight into the logistics to support those missions. Now, the brand new report that we added is down here. Oh, there it is. Total animals by public and non-public. Thinking downstream, we've introduced the ability to mark animals as public. Those are stray animals that are in your shelter. This report is just giving you a holistic view at how many animals of each type have we marked. And it's going to give you an understanding of how many people you're going to need for your reunification efforts. So this is probably not an unreasonable allocation. Earlier in the disaster is 6 public animals and 300 non-public animals, but you can keep track of that over time, and it is broken out by species, which is pretty dang helpful. All right. We're doing a whirlwind here. I know there's probably going to be some questions at the end, so we'll save them for there. But I'm going to hop over to the shelter module now. And one of the things that we introduced, and anybody that attended the summit last week got to play with this new form, and we're actually going to be putting out a new version of it later this week. But once you're working from inside of a shelter, there's now a new action menu up in your intake area. All these menu items have stayed the same, but now you have an action that allows you to download a shelter intake form, another PDF. And what this looks like is a paper form that actually matches exactly how data entry is done into Shelterly. This gives you the ability to do it paper if you want, more so if you have limited technology resources during a disaster. I kept thinking as we were developing this as the In-N-Out line. If you guys have ever gone to In-N-Out Burger and they have those people that walk all the way out to 60 cars deep and get your order in earlier, this form would allow you to do that if you only had 2 iPads. They at In-N-Out are fortunate to have a bunch of iPads, and they have 5G cell phone chips in those iPads, which is a costly expense. That's not what we're recommending. This gives you the ability to get a couple clipboards, get that data, and have somebody designated to do data entry. And we've simplified it because this is the order that data goes into Shelterly, and it aligns not only with the order, but the shape of the fields inside Shelterly. So when you're doing data entry, first name is next to last name, and then there's these 4 data entries on the next line. And so it's a lot easier to start transcribing instead of having to go back and forth. In the near future, we'll be doing something similar on the hotline side. We haven't quite finalized that form. And like I said, this form is going to get a couple of updates. It's nice to be back from the summit itself, including we kind of missed the fact that we needed to specify, is this an owner or a non-owner? And so we've added that earlier today. We haven't published that into the site yet, but this is another resource that you're able to use that aligns well when you're using Shelterly. I think I saw a question go by. Is it a timely question?
It's a comment asking on the paper form if we could develop a second page made only for additional animals of the same owner.
Yeah, we're actually going to talk about that at our steering committee in a week and a half. I want to make sure that what we develop is going to be consistent and usable. There's a lot. If I look at this form, this bottom half of the page is the animal form. So we can maybe get 2 onto a page. And so that's something we just need to discuss as a group, because we want to make sure that we're capturing as much information, we allow for capturing as much information while making data entry still easy. And so that's something that we have to hammer out. But it's definitely, it's on the roadmap. I just don't know how far down the road it is. Good question, though. Okay. And then I've got one other exciting feature. It's a beta feature, so I just want people to have an awareness about this. You will not have this feature by default, but some of the teams that have been using Shelterly for a while longer have been given, they kind of get to trial run some of these features. And it has to do with what we're calling cloning an incident. If you guys are running a lot of training exercises inside your county, you know it can take a lot of time to set up an incident, similar to this one that I was just in, where we have all these service requests in here and all these different animals. And it's like, man, I really don't want to have to do this again. How am I going to do this? And so a thing that we've developed, and this is something I was helping people do and realized that it was getting out of control because I can't always be online when people need me. So I said, let's make it a feature in Shelterly instead. And so now if you hop back out and you are an admin, this is an admin specific privilege, but if you go into manage incidents and you select the incident that you want to duplicate, so here, this is the one I was just in, one Fountain Grove. If you have beta access to this feature, you'll have this little clone incident button. It pops up and it says, hey, I need to give this a new name, and we'll make this 2 Fountain Grove instead of 1. And click clone. It has to do a little bit of work, so it spins for a little bit of time. A decent amount of time. There we go. Oh, logged me out, which is great. And then there you can see. So now I've cloned that incident exactly, meaning that now I have 2 copies of that incident. And that's, again, primarily the only real use case for this is training exercises. I can't imagine wanting to clone a real operational incident, but you can start to see the power of being able to do that and really start using this tool more consistently as a training output. That's the general idea. A caveat on that is it only clones hotline service requests field assignments, veterinary medical records, and the animals themselves from either intake or service requests. If you've done a bunch of debriefing inside the dispatch or sorry, the field module, those won't be carried forward. It's just that initial one. In the future, if there's demand enough for that, we'll add those capabilities. But right now, I think this meets most people's requirements. If this is something your team is interested in and you're not a beta team yet, go ahead and reach out to info@shelterly.org and we can have a good conversation about it and figure out what your guys' use cases are and make sure that that's something that is valuable and useful for your organization and make sure you know how to use it effectively in your training. I think we've got 3 teams that are going to be using it here pretty quickly in the spring season for their training exercises. And we want more teams to get there. We just want to test it a little bit, and then we'll do a much more public release of that functionality. Awesome. So I went through 8 pretty high-powered new features that we've added. There was about 60 tickets in this release. This is not everything. So as you're poking around in Shelterly always, you're going to see new things. Those are the big ones and probably the most impactful for you guys to be making progress this year. So we'll save the rest of the time for questions. And I think I already saw Erica raising her hand.
Yeah. So I know in the last time we met a couple weeks ago, it was talked about if we have to evacuate a shelter to a new shelter, as fire approaches or whatever. So I saw that transport requested button that you were talking about. Now that's individual per animal. Will there be an ability to do that globally, like to be able to select, 30 cats and say transport to second shelter?
Yeah, so we're going to spend a couple more releases this year focusing on the shelter side because that's really where it's going to come from is I've got all these animals in this shelter. How do I get them back out? And the select all or kind of allowing to select a bunch of animals and honestly be able to move them into Reunited would also be an effective tool, kind of this mass selection tool. But yeah, exactly. Similar to here, you can, not in here, sorry. In here, when we do that right now, it allows you to kind of put them to a specific address. It gets a little complicated if you have a bunch of animals from a bunch of different addresses, but if they're all going to the same location, which is kind of what you're describing, that's relatively easy and something we'll probably get to sooner than later.
Okay, great. And yeah, actually, as you said, with the Reunited, like if you know as a data entry person, oh gosh, all these 30 cats were reunited today. I don't want to have to go into each cat, click, 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 right? It would be nice to be able to just bring them up, click them all as Reunited and send them on their way.
Go along your day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. We have any other questions out there? I saw one more, maybe just make a pad with just the animal section that is Post-it note sticky. That would be an interesting format size. It's a PDF and you can definitely play with it in whatever capacity. You can print 4 to a page if you've got a magnifying glass, I guess. Those would be options as well. Front and back is good. I did not make a 2-page PDF with the assumption that not everyone necessarily will have a duplex printer in the field. But that's something you can just kind of print front and back as well to solve part of that problem. We deal with this all the time where animal information can get, if it's not on the same page, can be separated from the owner. That being said, my solution isn't necessarily it either because that's assuming you're actually going to write the owner information on every page and not just start stapling pages together. I think to Claudia's point, there's probably a happy medium. I just don't want to rush to it because I want to make sure that it's consistent and it's not going to slow down data entry because that form is really about optimizing data entry so that everything gets digitized as fast as possible. So there's some trade-offs there for sure. Well, awesome. I think the questions have slowed down, which is always a good sign. I probably just confused them with science today or something like that. But lots of new features. Again, Shelterly is always built for you guys. We're responders. We're building features. Hopefully what we're building makes sense and you're like excited about what we're doing. If we ever build a new feature and you're like, man, why did they do that? That's silly. Let us know. That's actually really good feedback. If there's something that's not useful at all, we would love to hear that information. We have a pretty good steering committee that's got a pretty good handle on the direction and all of that. We've got great people there. But we might have a bias in our own processes and how we think about things. So we've got consistent people attending these webinars. And if you want your voice to be heard, just reach out to us. And then one last reminder, since we're all here, about next month's webinar is the virtual quick start exercise. This is great for anyone with a beginner or intermediate shelterly level. If you've got a bunch of new team members, this could be a pretty good opportunity for onboarding them because there's going to be multimedia coupled with the training. So this is a nice time of year to start getting people spun up and getting prepared for the season. But that's a great opportunity, and we're going to be running those. I think we're going to go every other month. It'll be new feature webinar, virtual quick start, new feature webinar. And so we'll kind of change the cadence a little bit because we had requests for kind of a little bit more basic shelterly training and not me just clicking buttons all fast and showing off cool stuff. So with that, I want to thank everyone that attended this evening, and this video should go up live here by the end of the week on YouTube, so you can pass it out to the rest of your teams for anyone that wasn't able to make it. And thanks again, everyone, for your support and your continued attendance to our webinars here. Thanks, everybody.